In the future, breathing, an ability that humanity has taken for granted, is now a luxury as Earth's air has become dangerous to live with. Not until a woman unexpectedly ingests a substance that causes her to mutate and makes her humanity's last hope. Ethera, a South African pharmaceutical corporation, endorses its product, AI Remedy, claiming that it will better protect humanity than masks. Meanwhile, Solomon, an underground scientist, listens as his partner, Spider, shows him a new substance called Blue, which shares the same appearance as their serum. Through this, the authorities won't dare to test their project, as they'll think they're only developing a mere party fix. Elsewhere, Ella McPhee, a well-renowned model for Ethera, feels uncomfortable during her photo shoot because the photographer keeps complimenting her looks, which strongly resemble those of her late mother. During her bathroom break, Ella receives a call from her boyfriend Tully. Unfortunately, he ditches their plans to spend time together. He reasons that he has to fetch a few substances for his party later, upsetting Ella. Suddenly, she hears a group of models entering the restroom, and they express their disdain toward her. They believe that Ella is just her mother's replacement in their industry, and that people only like her because of her privilege. Wanting someone to comfort her, Ella contacts her best friend Gina, but the woman ignores her because she's accompanying Tully to collect their share of forbidden substances. Tully informs Gina that he's planning on admitting their affair to Ella later. Gina scolds him for it because it's Ella's mother's death anniversary today. A while later, at the train station, Ella receives a call from Gina, so she questions her why she isn't answering her phone. Gina lies that she's just in the shower when, in reality, she's with Tully. Moving on, Ella wonders if they can hang out at her place later, but Gina declines because she wants to attend Tully's party. Later, at the dealer's hideout, Tully sneaks into a room, which turns out to be Solomon and Spider's secret laboratory. He finds them watching a news interview featuring Ethera's head of research, Dr. Eric O'Connors. In this interview, Lazarus, a caller with a distorted voice, asks about AI Remedy's origin. Eric refuses to reveal the information, insisting it is confidential. Lazarus thinks Eric's evasion is only a tactic to conceal their company's inadequate supply to meet the public's demand. The interviewer abruptly ends the call, as the caller's accusations may damage the company's reputation. Since such a topic doesn't interest Tully, he simply focuses on Solomon and Spider's activity, thinking they're creating a new party substance. Eager to try it, Tully waits until Spider puts the finished serum into the storage before stealing it. After acquiring their supply, Tully and Gina leave the dealer's hideout, unaware that Shiloh, one of Eric's informants, has seen them. He contacts Eric about their presence, leading the scientist to assume they're Solomon's cover. That evening, Ella is reminiscing her memories with her mother when she receives a call from her father. He informs her that he can't be with her because he's still working on the healthcare problems in London. With his daughter's obvious disappointment, he urges her to go out tonight, believing she needs some company. Sarcastically, Ella expresses how she finds her father's priorities to be misplaced. In the end, she accepts his suggestions, but she threatens to have a wild night out just to spite him. Shortly after, Ella arrives at Tully's party, and her heart sinks after she finds him in the bathtub with Gina, planning to share the stolen serum. She feels betrayed by their affair, so she walks out of anger. When Gina follows her, the two friends argue. Gina accuses Ella of never caring about Tully, but the model denies her assumption. Back in the bathroom, Ella tries to confront Tully for cheating, but he voices his unfulfillment with their relationship, particularly her passiveness. He quickly ends their conversation because he needs to go after Gina, mindlessly leaving the serum behind. Out of spite, Ella grabs the vial and drinks the serum impulsively. Just after ingesting it, Ella starts to feel nauseous, which leads her to throw up. Boxer, who has a lingering attraction to her, offers to help her, but she also throws up on his jacket. He tries to brush it off, but Ella isn't in the mood to deal with people, so she orders him to leave her alone. Meanwhile, in Eric's laboratory, the scientist is frustrated that his test subject perished when he tried to use a synthetic replica to create more AI remedy supplies. This makes him feel threatened, especially since Lazarus's question in the interview earlier proves that he's yet to discover an alternative solution. At that moment, Angela, Eric's assistant, appears and informs him that she has discovered that Lazarus is based in Luxembourg. Later, Ella awakens and feels her temperature rising, so she decides to take a bath. Suddenly, Tully barges into the bathroom, and a group of thugs chase after him. Afraid, she submerges herself to hide from them, and she eavesdrops on them. Solomon and Spider demand that he return the serum, but Tully tries to deny any involvement with it. Unsatisfied, Christian punches him repeatedly, so Tully eventually reveals that he lost possession of it. Once the thugs leave to search for it, Ella emerges from the bathtub and admits to Tully that she took the serum. Relieved, Tully orders her to stay, as he'll summon Solomon, but Ella pleads with him to stay. When the thugs return to the bathroom, they're disappointed that the room is empty. They assume that Tully is tricking them, so Christian chokes Tully. When he provides no additional leads, Christian releases him, and Tully steals his gun, giving him the upper hand. Before things escalate, Spider tackles him, and a struggle for a gun ensues between them. A gunshot echoes through the room as Tully injures himself. Due to blood loss, Tully passes out, so the thugs decide to leave and find Ella. Moments later, as Tully regains consciousness, he's taken aback when he finds Ella clinging to the ceiling. He questions how she reached it, but even Ella has no idea. Curious, he asks why she has marks on her wrist, but Ella thinks it's a reaction to the serum. To find a way to escape, Ella tries to pick the door's lock, but she fails to open it. Frustrated, she punches it, leaving a hole in the door. Tully is in disbelief at her unexpected strength, but Ella merely thinks it's just an adrenaline rush. Once she's outside, Ella finds Solomon and Spider alone on the dance floor. She realizes that the pair has successfully driven the crowd away and overhears their plan to capture her. Afraid for her safety, Ella retreats to the bathroom to find a way to escape. She tries to break the ceiling window, but Tully warns her that they don't have their masks. With this in mind, Ella gives him her share of AI remedy, and the pair ingests the medication together. As Ella successfully breaks the window, Solomon and Spider are alerted by the noise, prompting them to rush upstairs. On the roof, Tully attempts to jump into the neighbor's roof, but he slips. Fortunately, Ella's tarsal claws save him from falling to his death. Gina witnesses the act, and she assumes that Ella is threatening to push him. Continuing the pair's escape, Tully takes the wrong step and falls to his death. Solomon approaches Ella and promises to help her deal with her mutation. Untrusting him, Ella proceeds to jump off the roof, and she lands unscathed. Gina arrives and finds her with Tully's body, thinking that she killed him. Ella tries to explain her side, but Solomon and Spider appear, so she leaves without clearing her name. Upon jumping off the fence, Ella almost crashes into Boxer's car, and she passes out, so the man carries her to his car. The next day, as the authorities investigate Tully's death, Shiloh informs Eric that Solomon is chasing after a woman, intriguing him. Meanwhile, Ella is sleeping when Boxer tries to take advantage of her. Alarmed, she pushes him away, but Boxer feels a sudden cut on his face. He accuses her of hurting him, but Ella denies it. However, when she checks her elbow, she becomes terrified of a claw protruding from it. Bothered at her condition, Ella goes to a hospital in hopes of getting treated. There, she drags the nurse into a secluded room and reveals her mutated face. Afraid that she'll endanger the patients, the nurse recommends that she must be quarantined. Ella insists that she isn't sick and that her new appearance is just a reaction to medication, but the nurse refuses to listen. Instead, she calls for security to capture Ella, but she sprints away out of fear. A chase ensues in the hospital, and Ella seeks cover in one of the patient's cubicles. To hide from the security, Ella uses her tarsal claws to climb the walls. Once the security fails to locate Ella, the patient shares that she's losing hope as the doctors reveal that their medicine supply is inadequate. Out of sympathy, Ella gives her all of the AI remedy she possesses stored in her mother's locket, much to the patient's gratitude. On the same day, Eric meets with the commissioner, and the woman plays Boxer's voice recording. The man recounts that Ella has claws protruding from her skin, which leads Eric to realize that she possesses the same attributes as a dragonfly. Thinking this is vital information, he orders the commissioner to keep it from the press. Later on, Ella arrives at Gina's residence, hoping to seek help from her. Afraid of her, Gina bolts away, but Ella chases her. She tackles her friend, and she pleads with Gina to help her with her condition. In Gina's residence, Ella uses Gina's phone to contact the thugs, knowing that they have Tully's phone in their possession. She texts them why they're after her, and she waits for their response. To find an answer, Gina tries to remember their encounter with them at the flats, which makes Ella realize that she lied about her whereabouts yesterday. This leads Ella to confront Gina if she encourages Tully never to answer her messages, but Gina denies it. Now, a heated conversation ensues between them as Gina admits that she's jealous of the attention Ella is getting, yet she remains miserable. Insulted, Ella stresses that nobody likes her, and that attention is never genuine. Suddenly, a phone call from Solomon interrupts their conversation, and the man proposes they meet in public if she wants to get her condition treated. Meanwhile, in Luxembourg, Eric's men enter an office to confront Lazarus. However, they find only a laptop on the table, where a message for Eric awaits them. They deliver the message to Eric, and the scientist feels threatened because Lazarus points out that once the public learns of AI Remedy's finite supply, Eric's company will face its downfall. Shortly after, Ella meets with Solomon, but he orders Spider to sedate her. Gina becomes worried that the pair has captured her, so she contacts the authorities. Unfortunately, they are yet to arrive, so she decides to follow them. Not far from their location, Eric sends Shiloh to pursue Solomon, for the scientist is desperate to capture Ella. Following this, Ella awakens and finds herself restrained in the thug's hideout. At first, she struggles to free herself, but she uses a claw protruding from her forearm to cut the bindings. Her plan to escape is put to a halt as she feels hungry, and the slab of meat in the sink compels her to consume it. In the middle of her meal, Ella overhears Solomon and Spider nearing her location, so she grabs a knife. She threatens to hurt them in retaliation for experimenting on her. Spider tries to approach her, but Ella spits acid on her to keep her away. Before Solomon can explain himself, the authorities make their presence known, so he hands Spider the last serum left and orders her to escape. When the authorities barge inside, they apprehend Ella, explaining that she's charged with hurting Boxer and killing Tully. Solomon is also taken into custody, as they mistake him for Ella's dealer. Moments later, in her prison cell, Ella feels her ear itch, so she tries to scratch it. To her horror, the ear falls off, and it is transformed into a protruding one. She finds herself disgusting, so she confronts Solomon for turning her into a monster, but the man begs to differ. He clarifies that she can help him develop a solution that will allow everyone, regardless of their social status, to breathe. At that moment, Eric appears, and he identifies Solomon as one of Ethera's former scientists. Afterward, he converses with Ella, and he's astonished by how her body has mutated. With this in mind, Eric convinces Ella to accompany him in trying a few tests on her. He promises that they'll teach Solomon a lesson if it's proven that he experimented on her out of her will. Once the pair are bailed out of prison, Eric takes them into Ethera's research facility, unaware that Spider is tailing on them. Inside, Eric's subordinates inform him that the DNA sample they took from Ella doesn't resemble a human. They also confirm that her genetic abnormalities match the genome sequence from Chlorocypha consueta, a species of damselfly. Right away, Eric visits Solomon in their basement and proposes that they collaborate to develop a solution to the toxic air. However, Solomon refuses, as he knows that Eric is selective in distributing the medication. For Eric, his actions are justified, emphasizing the damage the human race has committed. Back in Ella's room, Eric informs her that after consuming Solomon's serum, she now possesses immunity against their toxic air. Moreover, her body produces the neutralizing enzymes that they use in AI Remedy. Overwhelmed, Ella wishes to speak to her father, but Eric lies about how he's unreachable. Now, he tries to convince Ella to cooperate by promising to help her reverse her condition. Since she's desperate for this, Ella immediately signs the contract. During one of her tests, Ella's heightened sense of hearing allows her to overhear Eric's conversation with his father, who is Ethera's CEO. She feels betrayed after learning that Eric wants to harvest her enzymes, which will endanger her life. Alongside this, the CEO reveals that Ella's father has filed for a missing person report. Eric is unfazed, especially since they can simply frame that Ella disappeared as she refuses to be associated with Tully's death. To further ensure that the authorities won't intervene with their business, Eric reports that he has provided the commissioner a lifetime supply of AI Remedy to her family. Enraged, Ella attempts to confront Eric, but the scientist sedates her using a sleep-inducing gas. That night, in the facility, Spider pretends to be a newly hired delivery driver for Ethera and demands to pass through for urgent stock delivery. Meanwhile, Ella pretends to be asleep in her room when two unsuspecting doctors enter. They're about to administer more sedatives to her when the woman attacks them. The surveillance operator notices the chaos Ella has caused and alerts the whole facility about a security breach. Because of the warning, Eric receives a report that Ella has escaped her room, halting his plan to spend time with his son, Max. Later on, Ella enters Solomon's room and confronts him about why he refuses to cooperate with Eric. Solomon explains that he wants the medication to be available to all, but Eric thinks otherwise. Additionally, Ethera intends to be the sole distributor of a cure in the market. Upset with the serum's effect, she shows Solomon that she's starting to grow wings. Solomon deems it as just a side effect, but this upsets Ella for downplaying the problem. Determined, Solomon encourages her to accompany him to the laboratory, promising to explain it further. Elsewhere, Spider successfully infiltrates the facility and starts planting explosives. As a diversion tactic, she then sends an alert about a bomb threat. Upon receiving this message, Angela advises Eric to evacuate the area. Stressed, he orders his security to gas the whole building to incapacitate the intruders. As Eric's away, Max stays in his office for safety, and the curious child finds Ella's locket. Thanks to Spider, Solomon and Ella have enough time to reach the laboratory. Solomon retrieves AI Remedy's active ingredient, which is harvested from Chlorocypha consueta. He shares that the insect can only be found in South Africa, but Ethera decimated its population. Since the synthetic alternatives won't work, Solomon reveals that Eric wants to harvest Ella's enzymes. He then reveals that he's working with Lazarus to develop a cure that is accessible to everyone. Suddenly, the pair hears an explosion, prompting them to leave. In the basement, Ella alerts Solomon that a person is approaching them, so he decides to tackle them. It turns out that it's Spider who plans to rescue them. Their conversation is interrupted when a cloud of gas starts to envelop the whole basement, so the group seeks refuge in the bathroom. There, Ella senses another presence in one of the cubicles, so she bravely checks on it. She's surprised to find Max, who's afraid of the explosion earlier. Ella assures him that he'll be safe, and her comforting presence leads the child to think she's a fairy. Not wanting to spook him, Ella simply pretends that she is. Afterward, she invites him to accompany them, and Max hands Ella her mother's locket. As the group executes their escape, Eric appears and threatens to shoot them. Spider and Solomon manage to reach the elevator, but Ella is stuck with Max. Eric threatens to shoot Ella, but the woman remains calm. For her to gain an advantage, Ella warns that she'll hurt Max with her claws. However, Eric refuses to cooperate and fires a warning shot at Ella. After dodging the bullet, Ella orders Max to head over to his father before she glides down to the elevator. Outside the facility, Spider drives the stolen van to divert Eric and his security's attention. This allows Solomon and Ella to reach the facility's fence, wherein the woman uses her claws to cut through it. When they reach a reservoir, Solomon realizes that he can't accompany Ella anymore, as they lack any possible escape route. Since she has an advantage, he encourages her to leave him behind, but she hesitates. Therefore, he shows her his mutated arm, revealing that he's named Patient Y, whereas Ella is Patient Z. The serum doesn't have that much effect on him, because he's afraid to consume more. He then hands her the final ingredient for the serum and instructs her to take it to Lazarus. Before leaving, Ella hands him her mother's locket, finally accepting her new fate. Not long after, Eric, alongside his associates, corners Solomon, and he demands Ella's whereabouts. Solomon lies that Ella has fallen to her death, so a frustrated Eric takes him as his captive. That night, Spider creates a worldwide broadcast in which she consumes the serum and encourages the public to be open to their bodies mutating if they want to survive. On the other hand, Ella, now in her perfect form, visits Lazarus's hideout, which surprisingly turns out to be Angela, Eric's assistant.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.